What's one burning question you have about this AI moment as we head into 2025?
Just one. I think we've seen the conversation go a little bit of everywhere all at once, and at the same time go nowhere all at the same time, no matter if you're talking about AI and learning, AI and workforce. I think figuring out how we can, especially for the work that we're trying to do, how can we really pinpoint a certain kind of roadmap of where we want to take the conversation, and most importantly, where we don't want to take the conversation. What's one thing that you would say is true now that was not true at the beginning of this year?
Having been through many cycles of technology development and growth and thinking about that, I wouldn't have expected it to still be such a dominant topic at the same level this far into sort of the unveiling of ChatGPT that seems to have changed the world in many people's minds. Just because we know how long this technology has actually been around and what it can and can't do a little more than maybe your average person. So I think that surprises me, and I'm hoping that, you know, we can continue to get more nuanced in the AI conversation, because right now it's all very driven by a few big companies and a few big personalities. And I think there's a lot more that we should be hearing and a lot more people that we should be hearing from in that conversation.
Everyone wants to be an AI expert because it is buzzy. There's money flowing there. You know, if you put AI in your conference like proposal, most likely it's going to be accepted. And then you walk into that session and most people are like, well, we don't know, but we're gonna figure it out together. And so I think that is part of the problem, that you have all these quote unquote experts, but we're all kind of like in the same playing field. And yet, to your point that you just made earlier, some of the true experts are some of those same big names there. And they are setting and charting the course of where we should go on our AI exploration, for better or for worse.
Yeah, I agree with you that there's a lot of marketing around expertise. But in order to get a level deeper, in order to have the kind of nuanced conversation that will drive progress and drive participation from people who aren't already historically in the rooms, we have to change this thing around expertise. Not everyone needs to be an expert to have an opinion on something. I think that's where people get confused. And the education example that you gave around, you know, everyone thinks they're an education expert because they went to school. That's not true. Do we all have some perspective on education because we've all been through it one way or another? Absolutely. And we should value perspectives. We should value people's lived experiences. We should value their engagement. Not everyone has to be an expert for their opinion to be valuable. What gives you hope?
Wow. Big question again. Part of the hope is just the people that are doing the work. So if we think about like the organizations, the leaders that we support, knowing the set of obstacles, the challenges, the crazy times that we live in terms of just how polarizing society is right now. But the fact that people are like, now more than ever, we need to be committed to this work, regardless if it's leveraging technology or other aspects. People want to bring about change and they want to have impact, and they particularly want to do it for certain sets of people that have oftentimes been marginalized, overlooked, and not privileged and afforded the opportunities to live a meaningful life and follow a passion. So I think people are still committed to doing this work.
You know, our team at Siegel gives me a lot of hope. I feel hopeful about the way that we're able to collaborate, talk to each other, and try to make progress actually like a collective action thing, right? That we are recognizing that we don't know what we don't know, that we are facing a lot of unknowns in general, and that we can do better together. And that, I think, comes back in a lot of ways to like the Siegel ethos and this grounding in the notion that science and the scientific method and asking questions about the world will help you get to a better place. That when you build on what others have learned, you're going to do better than if you just try to start from scratch and ignore and act like everything is happening in a vacuum.
To the point of following like that scientific method, thinking about what are those really interesting, timely questions that we are best suited or poised to tackle, and who can help us tackle them through a co-learning agenda. And I think we have a really interesting set of questions across all the lines of work that we do. And we're actually start to see some inquiry coming in from those questions and grants and partnerships. And so excited to see what that looks like. Were we on the right track? Were we wrong? If so, why or why not? How do we need to tweak, iterate, go through multiple rounds of iteration?
We've really started to build a community around technology philanthropy. And like many other things, that wasn't quite a thing when we started, a little more than 8 years ago or so, and thinking about inquiry-driven philanthropy was new, thinking about our scientific method approach was new, and also being wholly concerned with technology and society was not always something that people understood. Now, not only do people understand it, but it feels like we are building community in terms of tech philanthropy, people who think about leveraging tech for good, but also, even more importantly, think about the risk and harm of pervasive tech. And so I'm really excited that we've started to have a greater community of philanthropic partners who care about tech philanthropy, not just tech itself as a tool, but tech's impact on the world, and that we have that partnership to move forward. And so that's really an exciting piece of the next phase of I think this work that we're going to do.
Yeah. And it's so true in the rooms that we're in that even a few years ago when we talked about like our mission to understand and shape the impact of technology on society, you get a lot of blank stares, questions. What does that mean? Why? What does this look like? Versus now, like anytime we roll out the mission, everyone's like, oh, heads are nodding, like absolutely, so important. And then when we start thinking about issues like public interest technology, again, a few years ago, people were like, what does that even mean? Why is it important? And now everyone's like, absolutely, like this is so spot on. So that evolution is just fascinating. I know you talk about that a lot, but to see what was confusion just a few years ago to now everyone's like, absolutely, so important. Makes a lot of sense, and we need to be doing more of it. I think it's just fascinating.
Yeah, one day at a time, my family will finally come to understand what I do for work and that it is in fact a real job. And I hope one day I'll be able to explain this to, my niece is 6, my other niece is 3, and it's not the same. My brother is a nurse. They get that. I'm trying to save them from the impact of pervasive technology on their lives. They don't quite get that, and they also don't always love it when I take away their screen time. But I'm hopeful that we'll get to a place where people understand the value of this and that everyone feels engaged in it in a way where I'm not actually trying to save them from anything. I'm trying to facilitate all of us having a role in what that next gen technology looks like and make it possible to create those spaces. So that is a really exciting way to think about this one day. One day my family will understand my job.
And then have them share that with my family because they're also struggling to understand.